counter narratives. So I'll try and break it down, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from, what my thought process is, and then we'll throw it open to questions from all of you. When we say Jai Hind, right? It's a very vast subject, so I'll break it down nicely for you. Have you ever thought Jai means hail? Okay? Victory, glory. It's a very simple word. Interestingly, the Mahabharata is also called Jaya. The Mahakavya was written as Jaya. That means victory. In our Supreme Court, what is written is Yatho Dharma, Tatho Jaya. That means where there is Dharma, there is victory. So then does the Supreme Court talk about religion when it talks about Dharma? No. Dharma is what in Sanskrit they say is Dharyate iti dharma. So that which sustains is dharma. So from our history, our rishis, our munis, people who thought, our philosophers, they understood that there is something that sustains all of us. There are laws that govern the universe. There are laws that govern nature. If you shake that balance, what will happen? There will be chaos. So it applies to us inward and it applies to us outward. So that's where dharma as a concept comes from. So that's why dharma has swadharma, that is my inherent nature. Who am I? What's my responsibility towards myself? Then there is my dharma or my responsibility towards society, my dharma towards my country, my dharma towards my family. Each of it is layered because each of it talks about sustenance. Now let's come back to Jai Hind. The word Hind. Have you ever thought the origin of this word Hind? Where does this word Hind come from? Why is Hind associated with us? So let's get back into this. From Hyun Sang in the 5th century to even before, if you go into the Vishnu Purana and even into other sources of recorded our own scriptures, this Bhubhag or this landmass, which was called Jambudvipa, Bharatvarsha, Bharatkhanda, पूजा में करते हैं ना जाम्बूद्वीपे भारतखंडे शुक्ल पक्षे. So they say all of this. Why do they say this? Our landmass is very unique. The definition of Hind or the word Hind comes from the word Sindhu. Now what does Sindhu mean? Sindhu is nothing but huge body of water. If you see geographically, this landmass is perhaps the only landmass in the world which is surrounded by 3 huge bodies of water. Fresh water on 2 sides and salt water on the 3rd side. So when I say fresh water is the Sindhu Nadi or the Indus River and that entire river system. On the east, on the west, you have the mighty Brahmaputra which comes from the Yangtze on the west. And of course, towards the south, we have the Hind Mahasagar. Perhaps the only ocean which is also named Indian Ocean or Hind Mahasagar after this landmass itself. So what happened is, then we should be called Sindhu. But that's what we were called. We were called Sindhu Desh. But अभी आप मेरे नाम पे देख रहे हैं स्पेस लग गया, जबकि ये नरसिम्हन है. Names get distorted. आप लोग अलग अलग देश के अलग अलग कोने से आते होंगे, हर कहीं बोली होती है और हमारे देश में स और ह जो है it gets intermixed, like it's not Assam, it's Ahom. तो वो स लिखते हैं पर ह बोलते हैं. अब गुजराती में भी, राजस्थानी में भी, मारवाड़ी में भी कुछ डायलेक्ट्स हैं जहां पर स और ह इंटरमिंगल हो जाता है. फिर एक प्रवृत्ति वाली बात है, जिसकी हिंसक प्रवृत्ति है वो सिंह है, तो ह और स इंटरमिक्स हो गया. तो देयर वर पीपल हु कुडंट से सिंधु, So they would say Hindu. तो वो हिंदू नदी हो गया. तो हिंदू नदी के उस पार रहने वाले कौन हो गए? वो हिंदी हो गए. So in Arabic and in Farsi you have reference to this landmass as Al-Hind. So Hind is something which is this landmass. So anybody who comes from this landmass will become Hindi or Hindu. It has got nothing to do with our individual personal faith. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about who we are, where our origins are from. Now let's get into this word called Twa. So Hindutva. What is the nature of sugar? Sweetness. What's the nature of salt? ठीक है, खट्टा. इमली, खट्टा. Right, sour. So everything has its own twa or ness, nature. That is also called Swadharma. So the inherent Hinduness in all of us technically should be Hindutva. Now what is that inherent Hinduness in all of us? What is the DNA of Bharat as we know it? Now we are all 75 years old as a country. है ना? As a country we are 75 years old. Now I'm just taking a deviation, interesting trivia. After the Mughals, who ruled Bharat? Quick question, pop question. After the Mughals, who ruled Bharat? British East India Company. Anybody else? Who ruled Bharat? Correct. The Marathas ruled India. You know for how many years? 70 years. How old are we? तो हमारी हिस्ट्री 75 बहुत बढ़िया है, लेकिन मुगल के बाद सीधा अंग्रेज 70 साल मराठा के गायब. And that map of Bharat is very similar to the current map of Bharat. Certain parts of eastern or northwestern Bharat are now Afghanistan and Pakistan, and certain parts of eastern Bharat today were not part of that Maratha empire. But the vastness, the spread was again Hindustan or Al-Hind. So over centuries and millennia, we have been known as Hindi. We have been known as Hindu Desh or Sindhu Desh. So Hindutva-ness or Twa, the Twa factor is not a political concept. The Twa factor is who we are because we belong to this Bhubhag or this Dharti which we call ourselves as our motherland. And this land represents a lot of culture, lot of history, lot of depth, and it has also gone through a churn. So that is what we represent as Hindutva, and that is what Hindutva should mean for you and me. That's my point of view. How it gets distorted, we'll come to that in just a bit. And who is distorting it, we'll come to that also in just a bit. But this is when somebody asks you, and you know how this journey started for me, I didn't know all of this. I'll be very honest. Until a few years ago, I didn't know all of this. Because frankly, I didn't care. Yeah, I'm happy, I'm a citizen of this country, I love my country, I'm doing my job, what's the big deal? Then suddenly one day, somebody turned around in a flight. And I was traveling abroad, and they asked me, are you a Hindu? And I said, yes. So then they asked me, why are you a Hindu? Why are you Hindu? And why not? And the person pushed his faith. I don't want to name what faith it was. He said, why not this? What is there in being a Hindu? That's when it got me thinking. I felt offended. First, I felt offended, but I was also tongue-tied. यार मेरे को समझ में नहीं आया, इसको मैं समझाऊं कैसे? फिर मैंने बोला कि अच्छा मैं उसको समझाऊं, उससे पहले मुझे तो समझना चाहिए ना. Now the top court of our country, the Supreme Court, has also defined Hindutva, Hindu, as a way of life. It has not defined it as a religion. Now the world over there is a big discourse, there is a big fight, because Hindutva or Hinduness or Hindu is a way of life. That's why we are not considered a religion. So the UN does not give us rights to protect ourselves, our faith. It doesn't. Okay, all other religions, all other faiths get protection, but Hindutva does, or Hindu faith does not. Hindu faith है ही नहीं भाई, Hindu तो way of life है. क्यों? क्योंकि हम सब अलग अलग फेथ को फॉलो करते हैं, लेकिन हमारे जीने का तरीका, फिलॉसफी सिमिलर है. आप समझ रहे हैं? दैट्स वेयर वी आर सिमिलर. Somebody is Shiv Bhakt, somebody is Kali Bhakt, somebody is Vishnu Bhakt, somebody is Krishna Bhakt, somebody worships Kanda, others worship Khatu Shamdi. हम अलग अलग लोगों पे अपना faith को रखते हैं. But what is it that binds all of us? What binds is the culture or the Hindu-ness in all of us, which has been passed on to us over ages, over dynasties, over different rules, but we've not lost it, right? But we've been de-linked from it. Now I'll tell you how. And I'll explain this. Why I mean is, आप लोग सब काफी लोग डिजाइन स्टूडेंट्स हैं ना, काफी लोग डेंटिस्ट्री स्टूडेंट्स हैं, काफी लोग लॉ स्टूडेंट्स हैं. All your education is based on a foundation. You can't have a design unless your core is strong. Okay, you can't set teeth unless you make sure that even if you do an RC, you have to make sure the fold is strong, that the tooth will hold, right? The foundation has to be strong. Law, आपका law का subject, you can become a strong lawyer if your funda is strong, if you know the law properly. So the core is what? Foundation. So the core for us to understand who we are is our foundation. Now if you're de-linked from that foundation, if you're not made to understand the true meaning of it, then we will always get confused, because जो हमें जो बोल के जाएगा हम सीख के जाएंगे, हम वही मान लेंगे, right? So go back and look at whatever I am explaining to you. I have also studied this, so you can challenge me if you believe it is wrong later. So that's when I started digging back. So this is our inherent. So what is our inherent nature? Our inherent nature is pluralism, and we have arrived at pluralism. It's not secular, okay? They're two different things. The word secular has been debased to a core. I'll come to the word secular also. Our inherent nature that we have evolved over thousands of years, you know, is what? Is pluralism. That means, आप अपना देखो, मैं अपना देखता हूं, समाज में हम लोग साथ में रहते हैं. So have Shaivites not fought with Vaishnavites? Yes, they have. Have Vaishnavites not fought with Buddhists? Yes, they have. But have they fought in the name of religion, religious supremacy, or just for kingdoms? Kingdoms. You know how Hyun Sang defined Bharat or Sindhu Desh? He defined this whole Bhubhag as an assimilation of various riyasats or kingdoms, but who are all commonly united by one culture and philosophy. So at that time, if there were 700, 800, 1000 riyasats, today we are 28 union states and union territories. But we are still united by one particular philosophy. So you see what is a continuum? The thought process that we all believe in one common philosophy. Now, where does that common philosophy come from? What is that common philosophy in Jainism, in Buddhism, in various offshoots of Sanatan Pratha, or the pure form of worship, whichever form? What binds us is that हमारा शरीर जो है जरा है. The body perishes, the body passes through a cycle, but what remains eternal is the Atma. Don't call it soul, because soul is again etymologically derived from the sun. Sun is a perishable ball of gas. So can you name something which is eternal as something over a perishable ball of gas? So frankly, English में उसका पर्यायवाची नहीं है. The word Atma. There is no पर्याय. But ठीक है वो, like I said, distortion. It happens. Like spirit means breathing. Spirit is not prana or consciousness. So it's different things. But चलो common parlance में हम हमारे भगवान को इंग्लिश में लॉर्ड बोलते हैं. Lord is a casteist narrative, elitist. It came from the British because they said we are the elite, you are peasants. So I am Lord and you are servant. So can you call Krishna, Rama, Lord? There's no word like Lordess, then it becomes Goddess. तो वहाँ ठीक है सेट हो गया, यहाँ गड़बड़ हो गया. I am digressing, let me come back. So that's what binds us all together. I was coming to that. This aspect of Atma. That means that our actions in this birth will reflect, because the Atma will carry forward on its journey. And eventually it will meet divinity, which we look at it as personal form or impersonal form. But we all believe that there is a higher power. How you reach that higher power is your individual choice. I will not decide upon it. I will not say my God is greater than your God. Neither will I say, only my God and not your God. We don't say that. Our concept is Akashat Patitam Toyam Yatha Gachati Sagaram. What does that mean? Akashat, from the sky, Patitam Toyam. Falls the, Toyam is water, rain. But eventually, where does it go? To the Sagara, to the ocean. So it all rises from the Sagar, goes towards, comes back onto land as rain, and eventually via lakes, ponds, rivers, rivulets, eventually why does it find its way? To the ocean. So it's a simple concept of geography, but it's also loaded in philosophy. That's our philosophy. That is Hindutva for all of us. And that is why किसी भी धर्म का कोई भी फिरका ले लो आप, that is sect ले लो आप, कोई भी, किसी भी धर्म का भारत में है. Whichever faith, all the faiths in the world are existing in Bharat. And they are coexisting brilliantly. 1.4 billion is our population. And if we were so broken and if we were so distorted and we were so violent and unlivable as a society, we would have had more riots everywhere. We would have had people killing each other on the streets. We don't have all of that. In fact, we have society which wants to live in harmony. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Hindutva. That, my friends, is what separates us from the rest of this world. Where we say, it's not about secular, it's about pluralistic. Now, to this word secular and the counter narratives and how it got politicized, the word Hindutva. What does the word secular mean? Do you know the origins of the word secular? The word secular means the church and the state will be separate. That means when you govern, you will not be influenced by church. So that means it's a European concept. How did it come? Why church and state? Because the Catholics and the Protestants would fight with each other as to who would have the ear of the king. But does that concept apply to us? It doesn't. Why? Because from time immemorial, you have had wise men counseling the king, irrespective of what faith they followed. So from the times of Rama, when Rishi Vashisht was there, advising Dashrath, to Vishwamitra, who advised and taught Ram, to the time of Krishna, who was a sage who advised the Pandavas, and Vedavyas, who was present there, there was always a figure who was steeped in knowledge, philosophy, and understanding of the eternal or Brahman, who was always counseling the Kshatriya or the king who was governing. So Dharma, welfare and righteousness were core principles with which we have been conducting ourselves. See, the wars that were fought for political expansion, kingdom expansion. Shaivites fought Shaivites, Vaishnavites fought Vaishnavites, and it was all about Suryavanshi versus Chandravanshi. Because वंशज है, पर इसलिए नहीं कहा कि सूर्य बड़ा है और चंद्र बड़ा है. It was because हमारे वंश को बढ़ाना है, हम बड़ा करना है. So it was always done for the political intent, not with the theological or religious intent. Religion was never spread with the might of the sword until about 1500 to 2000 years ago when things started changing. So that's a different concept. So that concept is alien to Bharat. It did not happen in Bharat. That's what historians have said, and that's what I have read. I'm sharing with you. So secular as a concept is wrong. It was never part of the first original preamble of our constitution. Our founding fathers argued about it in the Constituent Assembly and argued that we are not supposed to be secular. Because Dharma is intrinsic, righteousness is intrinsic, and we as a nation respect all religions, respect all faiths. So we will not be a secular state. Also, our partition happened on the grounds of religion, Hindustan and Pakistan. So when partition happened on the grounds of religion, it is because Muslims said we need a separate place because Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. 35% of Bharat was separated. And then at that time they said, how can you call it secular? Yes, in our governance, when we come to governance, can I differentiate or am I differentiating between you and her? No. Are the roads for everybody? Yes. Are the welfare schemes for everybody? Yes. Is the differentiation have and have not? Should that be the case? Yes. So in governance, I'll be secular. In governance, I'll not bring in my principle. But should I as a country not flaunt my personal faith? who I believe, my philosophy, I should. So that is Hindutva for all of us. That's how it should be. Now, where does the distortion start from? The distortion starts when political parties will come out and say कि हम हिंदुत्ववादी हैं. भाई हम सब हिंदुत्ववादी हैं यार, सिर्फ आप नहीं हो. And then it takes a muscular tone. And then you start creating these binaries. And then on the other hand, there are people who will say कि हिंदू में सब जातियां हैं. हिंदू में कभी जाति नहीं होती थी. Jati came with the Portuguese and with the British. Till then we had only Varna. In the Gita, chapter 4, verse 13, Bhagwan himself tells Arjuna that Chatur Varnam Maya Shrishtham. That means that I have divided society into 4 different Varnas based on ability and action. Purely on ability and action and not by birth. So, in this Lit Fest, and you've done a fantastic job at it, isn't there a logistics department? Isn't there a hospitality department? Isn't there a guest relations department? Isn't there a stage management department? They're all there, no? So what are these? Based on your ability and action. Who distorted it? We as human beings distorted it. Where we said कि तुम लॉजिस्टिक्स में थे तो तुम्हारा बच्चा भी लॉजिस्टिक्स में ही जाएगा. तुम स्टेज मैनेजमेंट करते हो, तुम्हारा बच्चा भी स्टेज मैनेजमेंट ही करेगा. तुम नहीं कर सकते. But our history is rife with examples where it was never gender specific, nor was it Varna specific. Anybody who acquired knowledge in the quest of Brahman or eternal divine knowledge or wanted to elevate themselves intellectually could become a rishi or a muni. Vishwamitra was a king. Valmiki was a dacoit. There are so many examples. Kripi was a Kripa Muni's sister. She was also a sage. So there are many stories. So rife. So we distorted it. We started segregating people. Society segregated people by the work they do. We then ensconced that into classes. It was never a class. We then incorporated the concept of caste. It was brought in by the invaders, the foreigners, Portuguese and the British. And then we got stuck with it. We never said that. We never said that the child of a lohar cannot become a scientist. We never said that. Or the child of a scientist cannot become a lohar. It was never like that. It's purely based on your ability. If you are sharp with your brain, आप खुद देख लो ना, तो क्या science, arts, design, ये सारी faculties हैं, management, तो ये क्या कास्टिस्ट होगी? नहीं ना. It's based on your ability and your action. So let's try and understand this. So when people come back and spread these narratives that Hindutva is casteist, no. Hindutva was never casteist. People allowed this to prosper because of this entire simple concept, which is very basic, that is of elitism. Let's not conflate or confuse things. It is the issue of elitism that the moment you become rich or the moment you become financially empowered, you think that the have-nots are inferior to you. And this exists even in the current system of castes and subcastes. Otherwise, in your quota system, you wouldn't have had the creamy layer problem. In the backward castes also, हम बड़े backward caste, तुम छोटे backward caste हो. Even among the Brahmanas, Iyengars are higher, Iyers are lower, etc., etc., etc. All of this is nothing but basic elitism in our system. Our rishis, munis, those are philosophers who have understood life, who've done a deep dive, who have done a lot of tapas. Tapas is research. Philosophically, scientifically, who've written all our scriptures, have come out and said very clearly that we are a samaj and we should evolve ourselves as a samaj which is inclusive, A, which is appreciative, B, C, which is pluralistic, which allows everybody the freedom to practice their thing as long as they respect the other's freedom. And you keep your personal faith inside the house. When you step out as a social being, as a samaja. If you look at Kautilya's Arthashastra, for 1000 years plus, Sriram Balasubramaniam has written a fantastic book called Kautilyanomics. Please read it. Which asks a simple question, that how did India prosper or this Bhubhag prosper for more than 1000 years? It prospered because it understood and embraced this concept that the job of every have is not just creating wealth, that is the Raja, but also to disseminate and distribute this wealth and also indulge in welfare. So creation of wealth, welfare were done with the basic dharma in place. What is the basic dharma? Is to sustain society. Sustain a pluralistic society. So that for me is Hindutva. The counter narratives are which are political distortions which say Hindu alag hai, Hindutva alag hai. अरे यार नमक अलग है और नमकीन अलग है, हो सकता है क्या? हाँ, शक्कर अलग है, sweetness अलग है, हो सकता है क्या? नहीं हो सकता है. So those who say that are doing it but deliberately because they think you don't know. So I'll distort and I'll continue to distort. I'll break and I'll continue to break. So that's the issue. The other aspect of Hindutva is that this twa element is gender neutral. This twa element has no amount of patriarchy in it. It's not patriarchal. So that's another narrative that Hinduism is patriarchal. Sorry, no. If you do a very, very frank, basic analysis, all our deities, all people, even men, are first, how are they addressed? As Shri. Shri is the Stri. Shri is the nature. Shri is Prakriti. So we say Radhe Shyam, Siya Ram, Shiv Parvati. So there is always the female which is an integral part of society. Did society say, okay, each will have their roles? Yes, that's a different argument altogether. But the Hindutvaness always talks about equal opportunity, equality and pluralism. That's how Hindutva should be understood. Now, if it is being distorted, it's being distorted deliberately. It's being distorted because there are certain people, entities who are trying to appropriate it, and there are certain people who think that they can continue to distort. Now, if historians come out and start saying that Yudhishthira practiced Buddhism, and they write histories in one paragraph where they put the Chalukyas along with the same as Mahmud of Ghazni, then we have problems. If historians have taken away 70 years of Maratha rule from our history, we have problems. So I am coming here to you to tell you this, that the next time somebody says Hindutva, don't cringe. Just be proud, because we are all carrying that DNA within us. That DNA is of a plural philosophy. That DNA is that we know how to live together. That DNA is of humanism. That's why I'm trying to say. So you need to sift. वो कहते हैं ना, you have to do the flamingo thing. Separate the water from the milk. So that's where I'm going to rest my case and I'm going to throw it open to questions. Did I make sense to all of you? Thank you for patiently listening.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
It was an honor to listen to you.
Thank you.
Sir, I would like.
You'll have to sit down and ask. Sit down and ask. Because this is coming in front of the speaker, so that's why you're getting the feedback.
Sir, I would like to ask, sir, when you said that you were asked that why are you a Hindu? So right now, if you have to suffice that in a few sentences, that why are you a Hindu? Like if we get asked that question, what should we answer?
Because I'm from Bharat. That's all. Like I said, if you embrace the concept that it's not about your personal faith, it's about the geography that you represent, the thousands of years of rich cultural, intellectual heritage that you represent, then it's very easy to answer this question. Now, if you read Savarkar or Vikram Sampath, Dr. Vikram Sampath's commentary on Savarkar, Veer Savarkar, although again a very politically polarizing figure, had a very simple concept. And this is what he said: I do not care what your personal faith is. I do not care what your personal habits are, what you eat, what you drink, what you wear. No. If you believe that this our Sindhu to our Sindhu, that means from the Sindhu on the top of our country to the Sindhu at the bottom, that is the water bodies. If you believe you belong to this Bhubhag and your ancestors also belong to this Bhubhag that is now called Hindustan, then you are a Hindu. That's all. That is his definition. In his essay on Hindu, he had defined it beautifully and he kept it very simple. He said, I don't care what you eat. I'm not going to decide that. I don't care who you pray to. I'm not going to decide that. As long as you embrace this fact that our ancestors were born and brought up in this Bhubhag and practice this whole concept. So the political definition that Savarkar gave of Hindu was this: He didn't even talk about caste, creed, community at all. He didn't care. And that's why, again, he's distorted. Again, those who would want to lampoon Savarkar that he wrote letters and he apologized to the British. Hello, that was the way you wrote letters everyone. You ask your parents, they used to always write sign-off letters like yours faithfully, yours sincerely. अब हम लोग क्या कहते हैं? Best, thanks. अब नहीं लिखते हैं ना. उस वक्त हुआ करता था. At the feet of your Majesty's humble servant was the way you signed out letters. It was a standard letter format. And everybody has written it like that. But you have to understand that this man was kept for 15 years in incarceration, solitary confinement. You go and see that cell and you would see that you can't spend 1 minute there. And he spent 15 years. And then when he was released, he was watched for the rest of his life. So why is it that he, along with a handful, were the people that the Brits decided they want to watch for the rest of his life? If not, he was a passionate patriot who was going to be a threat for the foreign invaders or the British. So I'm just challenging your thought process if you believe otherwise. I'm not taking away the contribution of anybody else, but there are certain people who have deliberately been distorted or removed. And their concept is something we should embrace. In 1942, he had written that China is the biggest adversary, we'll fight a war with China. In 1950, September of 1950, before he passed away on the 31st of October, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel also wrote, our biggest adversary is China. That was ignored and we fought a war in 1962, 12 years later. And they walked in. And they took, what they are sitting on today? That portion of occupied territory is integral to our Sanskriti. Do you know Sharda Lipi, Shiva temples, Vedic scriptures are all there in what they call New Territory or Xinjiang. It spread all over. That was a seed, cradle of our civilization that included all of Jammu and Kashmir. So I'm just saying we gave up so much of our heritage and we have been moved out, distorted from our history. And that's why today we are confused about, can we really say Hindu and Hindutva? If you embrace this concept that it's not personal faith, it's the geography that I represent, it's the country, the heritage, the culture that I represent, and more importantly, it's the pluralistic philosophy that I represent, then Hindutva is not a problem. Yeah. Yes, sir. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Anand. That was very enlightening. I am Umang here. So I have many questions actually, but we'll take it offline sometime. But I have very important questions again, which will be also related to the students, and would like to share one experience as well, because the question is linked to this. So, I mean, whatever we have studied, you brought the Mughals aspect of it, and from Mughals it came the East India Company, and that is exactly what we have studied. I cannot. Sorry.
Hold the mic a little closer because you're not
are we clear now?
Yeah, now you're clear.
Awesome.
In fact, this whole thing of calling them Mughals is also wrong. They're actually Temurites. See,
Yeah.
the Mughal word is also Mongol distortion. So that's what happens. And they came from Temur. Temur did not come from this one. So they are actually Temurites. But again, very nicely, conveniently distorted to Mughals. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So why I was coming was that, okay, we have known this history. That's the history which we are aware of. Somewhere nobody forced us to even look at the history, and it came back. Now, I was always interested in Mahabharata, okay, but never got a chance to read it. But it was just during COVID, I was hospitalized and I got some free time at that point of time. And then I actually went through a very beautiful podcast. And then I came to know that, boss, Mahabharata is just not about those two wars. Yeah. It's just not about the Kauravas and the Pandavas. It's actually the definition of Dharma. What actually Yudhishthir did, okay, to make sure that Dharma stays. And it's not about religion as well. Dharma is not linked to religion. Now the question is, I was never taught that. It just came through my thought process and I wanted to go through it. And then I realized that I was so wrong in interpreting what Hindutva or even what my history is. Now, if I was taught in a different way, my simplest of question is, how can I make sure that my daughter learns, which I guess I missed out,
Start
or the
telling
whole
her.
Concept of Hindutva. But that's for my daughter. Maybe I was interested.
All of
But
us
then
need to do the same thing.
How can we?
Why
put
should
it-
why should we lean to our schools? A lot of things our own parents never told us, right? Now, if they start, rather than telling you ki ye karo, if they explain to you why you need to do it. See, I'm not a big thing about rituals, but I am a big thing about understanding our philosophy, who we are as a people and why it separates us. There must be a reason why, that everybody wanted to come to Bharat. जितने भी आए यहां से आए, बाहर से आए ना यहां पर, कि यहां तो कुछ मिलेगा. हम तो नहीं गए वहां तक कि हमें वहां कुछ मिलेगा. हम जहां गए वहां कुछ दे के आए. आज भी टर्की में जाके मदद ही कर रहे हैं ना, वहां से कुछ लेके तो नहीं आ रहे हैं. सो दैट हैज बीन आवर इनहेरेंट थिंग. People have come here and they have remained here. That means that makes us special, right? If somebody wants everything that you have and somebody wants to be like you and somebody, that means you're doing something really good, right? You're not going and trying to be somebody else. So we went through that process as a country. As a civilization, we went through that process. What happened is, I think we started getting delinked. It didn't become very cool to read the Bhagavad Gita. And that's why, because our parents decided to keep it there on the puja sthal and started doing puja about it. I have taken it out and I put it on my bookshelf. And I get my daughter to read it, and I read it with her. So when I read the Bhagavad Gita with her and I tell her as a story, this is what Bhagavan has come out and said. And this is Vedavyasa, one of the most intellectual, brilliant persons, minds ever to, walk humanity. He is the one who's written it, right? As a kavya, 720 verses, and only 2% of it is theology. The rest is about how to lead your life. Every chapter gives you an answer. Who am I? What is my role in society? What is my dharma? What should I do? Where should I go? Why should I do it? Who should I pray to? What happens if I pray to somebody? What is the eternal truth? What is absolute truth? How will I realize absolute truth? How can I control desire? How can I focus? All these questions are answered. Now, if you don't want to read the book, there is Gita GPT now. So there's Gita GPT. So it's tech friendly also. But that's what I'm trying to say. If you read that, I go to that. That's my go-to book. I'll be very honest about it. In fact, what I've started doing is if I have to gift somebody something, I give them the Bhagavad Gita. Telling them, don't put it on the pedestal, put it on the bookshelf. Please read it. It makes a big difference. Because it's 5,550 years old, but it is still relevant today. That's knowledge for us, ladies and gentlemen. That's knowledge. So let's appreciate it as knowledge. It's got nothing to do with a personal faith. You know what that concept says? That concept says, irrespective of what form, personal, impersonal, whatever form you worship, whatever form you pray, eventually you're praying to only one divinity. So it also says there is only one God and there are many manifestations. And it's not about my God and your God. It just says that you have to climb 100 steps, right? So every step there is one anchor of faith for you, and you keep evolving. Finally, when you realize that this is how nature works, this is how the universe works, this is what powers the universe, and can I sync myself to that universe, to that higher power? So that's spiritualism. It talks science because it talks about bhugol. The word bhugol is there in the Bhagavad Gita. That means the earth is round. It talks about 1,000 suns. It talks about multiverses, universes, saying there are 1,000 Brahmas. One Brahma created this universe. There are 1,000 Brahmas which created many other universes. And they are all nothing but a small portion of my divine power. That's what he says in the Gita. So I'm just saying that we need to go back to this and read it as a book, as a novel, as a story, and then imbibe it. And perhaps we'll get a lot of our concepts clear. See, when we flow, what is a log? Why does a log float and a tree not? Because a log is not rooted. And the tree is rooted, right? So let's try and just dig in and get some roots. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So the only point is, if with so many distortions in place, how do you create that curiosity among this generation?
Point is that when somebody tells you something, don't take it at face value, check it out. That's all. You got Chat GPT, Gita GPT, and you got your library, and you've got Google. So go ahead and check it out. Shirmoy Piyakundu is there. Hi. One question there, and then to the ladies back again. Yes, sir.
I'll give it to you. I think the mic.
That,
Should I just ask him and then you can take the mic back?
Neither you believe in a dharma nor you believe in a dharma. is it possible to be neutral? At one point of time, we say, Ekam Viprasada Bahuda Badanti. That is the ultimate, Sanatana Hindu Dharma Parampara traditional approaches over there now. But at other point of time, the entire nation is being driven by this narrative that if you don't want to believe in a God, you might not believe it at all. You might get a neutral about. Is it possible to be neutral at all?
You know, it is phenomenal that you're asking this question, and Arjuna asked this question of Krishna 5,550 years ago, and Krishna has answered that in the Gita.
Right.
So what he says is, your actions will decide where you will go. If you don't have faith, you will be like a log. If you have faith, you anchor yourself, you will slowly find your roots. So that question is answered. Now those who want to seek the right answer will find it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the youth is being driven like that way,
Sir,
and as a professor,
sir,
I
I'll tell
personally
you,
feel painful about it.
I
now.
feel very, very happy that I see only youth here.
That's true. That's true. Correct.
So let's give them more credit, and I give them far more credit than what is currently due to them, and I'm doing that because I believe that they know far much more, and they are far more inquisitive. It's just that they don't say it out loud.
But there is a small another important submission over here now. You were talking about that Sindhu to Sindhu, the geographical existence is there, and that is why we are the Hindus. That's true. But unfortunately, the faith ecosystem got weaker day by day over a span of last 400-500 years or 600 years. So it would have been better if Sanatana Hindu Parampara would have been spread in the form of a faith system rather than called as a geographical system.
I'll tell you, we can keep looking back and say last 75 years में हमने क्या किया क्या नहीं किया और कैसे किया. I am looking at what to do now, next, going forward. अगले 25 साल 50 साल में हम क्या कर सकते हैं. So we know what we should have done. Let's try and start doing it now. That's where I am trying to stop it.
Thank
yes,
you.
Shrimoy ji.
Hi,
Yeah, you're on. Mic is on.
hi Anand, Shrimoy here. Good to pose a question to you for a change. So I'm going to take a counter view. You know, I was born into a very devout Bengali upper middle class Hindu family, but I'm a practicing Buddhist since the age of 19. And I now live in a city where my Christmas cakes at Nahum, which you know is a famous Jewish bakery, is made by a Muslim baker. So I love the syncretic fabric of my country. I just want to pose a question because, you know, I write on gender and women. And I, as a woman, as a writer, am extremely disturbed by the, you know, the sort of hate mongering by women like, say, Sadhvi Pragya, who's saying that, you know, a good Hindu woman should get married, you know, should have, you know, anytime there is an attack on my sex, it's always as a good Hindu woman, aapko ye karna hai, wo karna hai, wo karna hai. And I'm asking you a question, Anand, because I don't relate to Hinduism anymore, the form in which it is being practiced now. Don't you think Hindutva politics, right, and sort of the hate, the rabid sort of regressive marginalization of women, right, isn't Hindutva really the end of Hinduism then?
No. The fact that you are born a Hindu, practicing Buddhism, and enjoying cake from a Jewish bakery is the example of Hindutva. That is Hindutva. The syncretic culture, the pluralism that you spoke about is Hindutva. Now, with the specific case of Sadhvi Pragya, why do you want to make somebody so important if that person, you don't agree with that person? The other thing is that if and by chance one day when you sit and talk to Sadhvi Pragya informally, you will see how she was tortured. You will realize where she's coming from in terms of the pain point where she's coming from. So I don't want to get into all of that. I'm not justifying her case. My point is, we all have the freedom to choose, right? I can choose not to get affected by her. I can choose very clearly, her opinion doesn't matter. Dude, I want to follow this is what I follow. And that's the beauty of our country, and that's the beauty of Hindutva. That nobody will question your choice of practicing Buddhism or buying from a Jewish cake made by a Muslim person. It doesn't matter. That cake is yummy. I'd love to eat that cake and I'll share it. So that is the Hinduness that I'm talking about.
That's only in some states, right?
No,
Where
it's
we are allowed to
everywhere around us, Srimoy
if we
Piyakundu.
look around,
It's
there's
everywhere
so
around
much
us.
of hate everywhere.
No,
There's
it's
so much of
no.
religious,
What we are seeing is
discrimination.
we are choosing to see the hate, and what happens is the more you choose to see only the hate, you tend not to see the love. What you're seeing here is not hate. What you're seeing here is love. And 1.4 billion may say, if there are 14 who are spreading hate, so should you give 14 importance or should you give the remaining? 1.39 and 84,000, whatever the number is, that's what I'm trying to say. So, no, I am standing here, what am I giving importance? The point is, see, that's a different discussion. I am just making individual choice. We can choose if we know. We can choose if we study. We can choose and we can make sense if we are aware. So this quest is internal. So if each individual does that, then society by default becomes harmonious. And I'll tell you, आप दुनिया में कहीं पर भी चले जाओ, there is no place where there is no hate. There is no place where there is no fighting. There is no place where there is no racism. There is no place where there is no sectarian disturbances. Everywhere it is there. In fact, the rate of crimes are higher in some of the most developed nations compared to the rate of crime here. You know, we have one policeman for 720 people in our country. And our crime rates are lower than nations which have one policeman for 100 people. Do we have people taking a gun and shooting innocent school children in schools? We don't, right? That is Hindutva, ladies and gentlemen. That is the syncretic culture. That's the philosophy. We don't spread out hate. We don't go ahead and take out society just because we believe that something is wrong. We don't do that. That's the beauty of our country. That's why I stand up. Now today, somebody asked me, why are you Hindu? Because I am from this country which allows people to live. We are not focusing on killing people. We are focusing on making sure how humanity can survive. That's the beauty of our country. Let's take that. Let's embrace that philosophy and reject those who don't. And eventually they'll also come around. Society gives space to everybody. No, you have to tolerate everybody. Sadhvi Pragya personally has undergone the level of torture that I hope no human being has to endure. And the way she's been treated as a woman, you should actually be standing there and say, this is no way to treat a woman. But that's a different conversation we'll have. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Don't look so sad, yaar. Okay, thank you.
Is it okay if I don't speak in a mic?
Okay.
So I come from a generation where social media has taken over and it somehow affects your opinion. I have seen so many of my friends who have stories that every few minutes a political case. Videos I wear, things I eat, where I go to school, my gender, my sexuality, what I
Everything has good and bad, right? Yin and yang. It's a standard concept. So where there is dharma, there is adharma. Where there is darkness, there is light. It's a standard concept. So social media is also like that. So there is good about social media, there's bad about social media. We stopped talking to our friends. We stopped saying hi. We say hi on chat. Abhi aisa bhi hoga, somebody will be standing here on the anti-clock, the other person will be there and you will be chatting on Messenger. Oh, how are you? See, that's the bane, because we are spending more time in our screens rather than with our friends. And social media allows you to express without being seen. Correct? And you also get this entire thing about self-worth. 20 selfies you'll take and then you'll post only one, the one which looks best. मैं आप लोग कैमरा के सामने खड़े हो नहीं हो जाओगे, लेकिन सेल्फी के लिए आपको पता है which angle, which pose, which look looks best on you, and you'll always give your selfie photograph like that. सही है कि नहीं है? Correct? So when you are looking at so much of appreciation, and if you start looking at social media to try and increase your followers and to get self-worth, underlining your self-worth, then you're walking into a trap. Because the moment you start getting trolled, it'll start affecting you. If you use social media for the fact that you just want to share, and you don't care whether somebody likes it or not, I just want to share, boss. You disaffect yourself, then it stops being a problem. Are you saying everybody, there is a lot of cancel culture, wokeism, and people judging you? Of course. Yeah, we are people. Whether social media or otherwise, people will always judge. But don't allow it to affect you so much. That's my only, I can only tell you. And if you feel that it's so much of vitriol and so much of negativity, get out of it. Just get out of it. That power is also on you, no? To hard press an app and say select and delete. डिलीट हो गया तुम्हारे फोन से, अब खत्म हो गया ना, फिर टेंशन ही नहीं है. नहीं यार, सोशल मीडिया जाना तो है, ऊपर गाली नहीं दे, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता ना. Okay, let me ask this question to everyone. Do you think every decision that you make is political? कमाल है यार. कोई आपको ये बोल रहा है ना, तो उसको बोलो ब्लॉक कर दो, या फिर उसको बोलो भाई थोड़ा 10-12 घंटा सो के आओ, चाय वाय पी के आओ, फिर बात करते हैं. Come on, should not allow. I don't agree with it at all. I don't think largely everybody agrees. No, your choice. You do. You express yourself. I'm telling you. I don't put an Instagram saying मेरे को कितने like मिले. No यार. I feel डालना है, डाल दिया. नहीं डालना, नहीं डाला. You treat social media like that. Yes, sometimes you get trolled. Of course, we get trolled. It does affect you, but I don't react. उसको troll करना है, उसका काम है. The fact that he's trolling you or telling you or she's trolling you is telling you something is because they want to evoke a reaction from you. Don't give that reaction. Don't give them that joy. Just ignore. Move on and you do your work. No. There will be 1,000 people who will tell you you are useless. You focus on the one person who says you are good. That's enough. It's about how you look at life. Half empty, half full. I'm a realist towards the optimist side, not a pessimist. Yes.
Before I say anything, I'm truly fascinated about whatsoever you have said, because like I'm too meager to say that,
Thank you.
but I'm truly fascinated. And what my question is that you have given this knowledge to me. Now, what am I supposed to do with this knowledge? Like you have given me the tool, but how to use it? How can I use it to improve the society, to improve the mindset as a youth?
Okay. Can I give you 2 or 3 things which you can constantly do?
Yeah.
And then what happens is it starts becoming part of your nature, right? And then you can evolve. It's like artificial intelligence. ठीक है, अपने आप evolve, self-evolving. First thing, all of you are on social media? Yeah, all of you are on social media. I have a very humble request. Every week, put something which is not about you, but which is about your surroundings. Something which brings out the flavor of your country, your state, your culture, something. First, anything as it is, whatever it is. Somebody is giving somebody food, sharing is caring, hashtag Bharat, whatever it is. Whatever you want to put. Chai at your university. You want to have, kabhi kuch din to guzariye Karnavati mein. Whatever. I'm just saying, don't make it about you. Make it about your surroundings, your country, your culture, your people. 1 post a week. That's the first step. Second step, when you choose your career, when you choose what you want to do, always also say not just what's in it for me, but also what's in it for India. Okay, so that is something which I want all of us to have. Ki whatever I am going to do tomorrow, how am I going to help my society, my culture, my people? How am I going to do that? And the third, go back to your scriptures. Read them, please. Read them as books. Read them as stories. Read them as philosophy, not as theology. You know, our scriptures, very interesting, very, very learned person told me that in our scriptures, only 6% of our scriptures are theology. 94% is philosophy, science, spiritualism. So it's beautiful. You know, there are so many stories about metallurgy, what we have done as a civilization in metallurgy, what we've done as a civilization in chemistry. When you go to an old temple or an old structure next, first think, how did they know? How did they? Dude, if you go to the Somnath temple, there is a point which says this is an unobstructed pathway all the way to the South Pole. है ना? Oh, I saw that. I said, यार इसको कैसे पता था? हम लोग को एज साइंटिस्ट और इन 15th century 16th century में पता लगा ना कि भाई नॉर्थ पोल है, साउथ पोल है, गैलीलियो ने बोला अर्थ इज राउंड, सबने बोला वाह वाह वाह, पर 5000 साल पहले हमने भूगोल का कॉन्सेप्ट लगाया. सोमनाथ मंदिर कितना पुराना मंदिर है और ये पहले से भी मार्क किया हुआ था. व्हाई? सो दैट शिवा हैज एन अनऑब्स्ट्रक्टेड विजन टू द अदर एंड ऑफ द अर्थ, दैट इज द साउथ पोल. हाउ डिड दे नो? दे वर नेविगेटर्स, राइट? हाउ आर देयर एग्जांपल्स ऑफ अ जिराफ at the Konark temple? कोनार्क टेम्पल कहाँ है? जिराफ तो सिर्फ अफ्रीका में है. वो कोनार्क टेम्पल कितने साल पुराना है? 1500-2000 साल तो है ही ना कम से कम. तो 2000 साल पहले उनको जिराफ कैसे दिख गया यार? अब सोचो तो सही. Padmanabha Swami temple. There are so many structures in our country. Summer solstice, the sun shines directly on the idol. How did they get it right? They have used space technology to try and get it for the Ram Janmabhoomi, the Ram Mandir they're building now. They moved the Nile mein, wahan par, when the dam was being built, there was a temple there at the higher end of the Nile. They moved it up by 600 meters. They just could not perfect. So science is there in ancient civilizations. That's Mesopotamian civilization. This is the Indus Valley civilization. But I'm just saying our civilization knew so much. Go back and ask this question when you go to Bali next time. You will see that they worship Saraswati, Ma Saraswati, more than anybody else. In their temples, Ram is outside the temple. Vishnu is inside the temple. And Vishnu is formless. Saraswati is formless. Hanuman is sitting above as a guardian. They're not inside the temples. So those are older philosophies of Pratha and what they thought these people were. They were not gods. They were just higher human beings. That's why Ram is called Maryada Purushottam. Purushottam hai wo. Purushon mein uttam hai. So you have to understand that they rose as human beings to a higher level and they connected with divinity. And there are others who did it too. Adi Shankara did it, Gautam Buddha did it, Mahavir Jain did it. There are many people who did it. So try and just get into it. थोड़ा सा हिस्ट्री अपना, थोड़ा सा अपना कल्चर भी पढ़ लो. ये तीन चीज आई थिंक.
Thank you, sir, for that.
बाकी अपने आप हो जाएगा. AI will code itself. Done? Any more? Yes? अरे वाह. Please tell me when I have to wind up, I'll wind up. Huh?
Hello. So, sir, first of all, I loved what you said. It was an amazing piece of information I got. I don't have a question, but I have a wonderful experience
Please
which
share.
I got from which I got when I started reading Bhagavad Gita. So I was somebody who used to get affected a lot by people's opinions. But the day I started reading Bhagavad Gita, and I realized that this was a piece of information that I was never exposed to all my life. The 19 years of my life, I've never read something like this. And each verse, the 4 5 lines, and the meaning it has, it's so deep, and it has helped me a lot. And now I know how to focus on myself. What I do is for me and not for others, and that I don't have to be affected by what they think. And what I do is for my karma. If somebody says anything bad or anything, it's not because of me, and I don't have to focus on it.
Very well said, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Now here is what happens. So Arjuna is a confused. So why? I'm just quickly going to take 5 minutes. Why I'm so passionate about the Bhagavad Gita. It's not a religious instruction. Why? It's a warrior confused in the battlefield asking his charioteer, "भाई मेरे को समझा, मैं confused हो गया." Correct? Simple सा फंडा है ना. मैं कैसे लड़ूं? वो तो मेरा दाना है, वो मेरा अंकल है, वो मेरा भतीजा है. मैं इसको कैसे मारूंगा? मेरे बाण नहीं चलेंगे. मैं अपनी फैमिली को मार के मैं खुश कैसे हो सकता हूं? कंफ्यूज बंदा है ना. वो उसको बोला मेरे को सिखाना, मैं कहां जाऊं? सो देन यू हैव कृष्णा कमिंग आउट एंड टेलिंग हिम, बॉस लाइफ में तेरा ये काम है. करेक्ट? नाउ व्हाट डज ही से? ही सेज इट इन स्टेजेस. फर्स्ट ही सेज कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन. दैट मीन्स you do your karma. The fruit of your karma is not under your control. तो सबसे पहले उसने क्या बोला कि सामने वाला तुमको ट्रोल करता है, सामने वाला तुमको स्लट शेम करता है, सामने वाला तुमको कुछ भी करता है, वो तुम्हारा कंट्रोल में है ही नहीं. तुम्हारे कंट्रोल में क्या है कि तुम कैसे रिएक्ट करते हो, तुम किसी के साथ कैसे बिहेव करते हो, और तुम अपने आचरण को कैसे करते हो. योर एक्शंस. सो योर एबिलिटी एंड योर एक्शंस आर अंडर योर कंट्रोल. देन यू नो व्हाट ही सेज लेटर ऑन. He says, your actions come to me. The result of your actions also come to me. So you are not even in control of your result of your actions. You are not in control of your actions also. So he is saying, you are like a pen. I am the writer. So if I am the pen, I am the writer. What is the pen doing? Instrument, right? So who's writing? Am I writing or is the pen writing? Who's writing? The pen will think that the pen is writing. Reality is, I am writing. So that's what he tells Arjuna. You think you are killing them, but I have already killed them. That's what he shows them in his Vishwarupam. that they're all dying and they're already gone. So he said, it's already scripted. तुम बस script execute करो भाई, है ना? So that's what he says. तो फंडा बहुत क्लियर है कि आप बस अपने काम से मतलब रखो और अपने काम को धर्म के अनुसार करो, यानी कि जो तुम्हारा सस्टेनेंस है, जो तुम्हारा स्वधर्म है, उससे हटकर मत करो, वो करो, बाकी तुम्हारे कंट्रोल में है ही नहीं बॉस, कभी था ही नहीं. ये बहुत सिंपल फंडा है. अच्छा लगता है ना when you read it, you know, you just feel settled. 4 days, 5 days I started reading it and I said, boss, ये तो I am in a different zone. So it was like that. So try it. I hope it works for you. Thank you everybody. Wonderful. Thank you so much.